According to Pete Prisco, top of the list is defensive tackle Javon Hargrave with Philadelphia. And then you have defensive end Marcus Davenport, who, of course, has made his career with the New Orleans Saints. And then the guy who protected Patrick Mahomes' blindside, Orlando Brown, he's in there for the Chiefs. Jawan Taylor, Jason Kelce, scratch him off the list. You could scratch him off the list. He's going back to Philly. But Jawan Taylor, will say Jamel Dean rounding out the top 5. All right, so for more on what we're going to see, we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers, certainly because of the fact that he's in the news these last few days with what's going on with the New York Jets, potentially going to the Jets. So Rodgers, most seasons with a team, it's 18 with the Packers, but that could be changing. He might follow in the footsteps of Brett Favre and go from the Packers to the Jets. He says a decision is coming soon as we wait to see what happens with the first ballot Hall of Famer, soon to be first ballot Hall of Famer. All right, for more on this, let's welcome in lead NFL insider Jonathan Jones and NFL analyst Brady Quinn. JJ, we're going to talk about free agent stuff first, but we're all waiting for Aaron Rodgers to decide what his future holds. What's the latest?
The latest is there's a lot of surprise around the league that Aaron Rodgers has not made clear whatever his decision is regarding his playing future, whether he's going to retire or go play with the New York Jets via trade. You know, Mark Murphy, who essentially runs the Green Bay Packers, came out over the weekend and more or less killed any notion that Aaron Rodgers is going to be returning to Green Bay as the quarterback of the Packers. So it's Jordan Love's show. But when the legal tampering window opened at noon Eastern on Monday, the prevailing thought around the league was that Aaron Rodgers, who also said himself he would not make folks wait and that something would be determined soon, that a decision would be known at that point because the New York Jets and the Green Bay Packers need to know what they're doing here in free agency as this window opens up. I know we're going to get into free agency, but plenty of deals already being struck around the league. The Jets would probably like to be involved in that, but they've decided that they're going to wait on Aaron Rodgers. So I personally am surprised that we didn't get a decision an hour ago. I know that sources around the league are also surprised, but what someone has been telling me for weeks about Aaron is that, quote, Aaron is Aaron. And so I think that we all can understand, based off of his history, that he's going to march to the beat of his own drum. He's on his own time. The New York Jets are on Aaron Rodgers' time, and unfortunately, that time is not right now.
I'll be surprised if we don't have a decision from Aaron Rodgers in the next 24 hours. You just mentioned, JJ, he did say he's not going to hold both teams hostage, and I don't think that's how he wants to leave the Green Bay Packers either. But I think that may be one of the reasons, too, as he's contemplating what his next step is and how he wants to take that next step. It was 18 seasons as a Green Bay Packers quarterback and a historic one. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's won a Super Bowl there, won a lot of games, a 4-time MVP. I think one of the things that flies under the radar, though, about his legacy in Green Bay is he filled in the shoes of a legend. I don't think people understand how hard that is. I mean, he was the guy that was drafted to take the place of Brett Favre, and he did that. And he didn't make everyone forget about Brett Favre, but he surely helped them move on to another team that was very successful during the course of his tenure there. So this is a huge move for him in what he does with that next step. Ironically, it happens to be the same destination that Brett Favre went to when he left the Green Bay Packers in a not so good terms. As you hear CEO Mark Murphy make some comments as far as it seems like this is a done deal. It's just a matter of when. But like I said, I think we'll hear something in the next 24 hours as we get closer to the actual opening of free agency instead of whatever we're calling this right now, legal tampering, which seems like an oxymoron, but hey, I'm just here. So.
All right, well, let's go from there over to free agency and legal tampering, Brady. One guy whose name is popping up, San Francisco quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, who we know is not going to be back with the 49ers. What's the market like for Jimmy G at this point, JJ?
So I had reported last week that there were really 3 teams that would be involved with Jimmy Garoppolo. And in some order, 1 to 2, it would be the Las Vegas Raiders and it would be the Houston Texans. And then a distant third, because, again, they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers, it would be the New York Jets as a sort of backup plan. And so right now, I don't know that Jimmy Garoppolo is necessarily going to rush into a deal. I don't know that either one of the top 2 teams, the Raiders or the Texans, would be rushing to get a deal done with Garoppolo because of his injury history. Listen, the guy just wins, as we see right there, but unfortunately he hasn't been able to stay healthy for the overwhelming majority of the last 5 or 6 years. And we know that there's no more place for him in San Francisco. We know that the Texans, picking at number 2, are very likely to have and secure their franchise quarterback in April's draft. However, they may very well go out, sign Jimmy Garoppolo, draft the guy, and then put him on the Patrick Mahomes plan, if you will, by letting him sit for a year. The Las Vegas Raiders, they really do like Jared Stidham, but they do need someone else as well. And so he could reunite there with Josh McDaniels. And again, the Jets, as we continue to wait on Aaron Rodgers, is it possible that Jimmy Garoppolo winds up with the Jets? Sure, but until we hear about what Aaron Rodgers is doing, the Jets will continue to wait.
It's a really tough spot for Jimmy Garoppolo. As we pointed out, he's been really successful when he's been healthy, but it's a matter of if. And honestly, the team that could probably use the most is the team that doesn't want him back, the San Francisco 49ers, with Trey Lance coming back from an injury, along with Brock Purdy, who's going to be on a tight time schedule if he's going to make the season in time. And then also, given the amount of success that Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan have had together, go look at the win-loss record with pretty much any other quarterback outside of Brock Purdy. So the Texans make some sense. There's some familiarity there with Nick Caserio, obviously as their general manager. And then really the best fit is the Las Vegas Raiders. I know they're high on Jarrett Stidham. The reality is I'm not sure how many games Jarrett Stidham's going to win them. Feels like maybe more of a play to tank and be at the top of the draft to get someone like Caleb Williams or Drake May. Jimmy Garoppolo brings you stability. He knows the system. He could run the system. It makes a lot more sense for him to be a Las Vegas Raider than anywhere else. The Jets would make some sense if things with Aaron Rodgers fall through, although I don't think that's going to be the case. He'll know that system as well, given his roots going back to playing a little bit in the West Coast offense now that Nathaniel Hackett's their play caller. But the reality is, to me, it's the Raiders. It makes all the sense in the world. It's just going to be tough if they happen to find themselves in a position where they draft a quarterback, as JJ talked about, and he's basically a starter for a year, and then someone else is going to come in and take over after he's done. I think Jimmy Garoppolo wants to find a place that he's able to play well, and play for the rest of his career.
All right, as we heard earlier in the program, a long time. Sorry, JJ, you got something here?
Nope. Yeah, just real quick, there's a report out that Jared Stidham, as we were just talking about, the Raiders wanted to keep him. NFL Network is reporting that he just signed a deal with the Broncos, obviously to be a backup there and to work with Sean Payton. And so as the Raiders world continues to turn, I think that now that the guy that they did like, and I completely agree with everything Brady said about the quarterback, they really do like him. Obviously, he's not going to be with them this upcoming year. And so needing to go out there and get a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, there's even a greater premium on it right now. So, I said that there may not be a rush. There wasn't a rush because I thought that they believed that they were going to be able to re-sign Jared Stidham. Now that that's not the case, we might see things pick up a little bit.
Okay, so does that mean, Brady, I'll ask you this, does that move the Raiders to the top of the list for Jimmy G at this point?
The top of the list, or maybe looking to be at the top of the draft. I mean, at this point, you got to find a quarterback, and if they love one in this year's draft, why not try to sell your future? And if you're Josh McDaniels, and get up there and take one of those top quarterbacks that you've fallen in love with. They may even be looking at it from both angles here. Sign Jimmy Garoppolo, and if you don't get a guy in the first round, look to take something later on in this draft, potentially to be there as a backup or the future of your organization. But Jimmy G has to be the number one target, at least in free agency on the radar. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll end up being the number one guy when it comes around to the season, depending on what they do at the first round of the draft.
Lead NFL insider Jonathan Jones joining us here with Brady Quinn, and JJ breaking some news. Jarrett Stidham signing with the Denver Broncos here. Okay, longtime Eagle center Jason Kelce has announced he's going to be back for a 13th season. He kind of tweeted about it in a very Leo DiCaprio Wolf of Wall Street style way because it's a family program. I'm not going to get into that. But 36 years old when the season begins. He's not done yet, JJ.
No, he's not. It was indeed some colorful language. It felt a little funny retweeting it because, it's a family program. This is a family Twitter account at JJones9. But you know what? I mean, he's a heck of a player. I think that he has played himself, and I'm interested to hear Brady's take on this. I think he's played himself into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, and I think he's done so really over the last 2 or so years, where he was in the Hall of Very Good, in my opinion, through the 2019 season, where he had, I think, 3 first-team All-Pros, several Pro Bowls. But then just these last couple of years, how he's aged like a fine wine, how he is going to return. They're going to have to work out the contract terms, of course, because they had done a lot of restructuring and contract manipulation over the last couple of years. sort of anticipating that he would be done after this season and that Cam Jurgens would sort of take over there. Well, now we're going to slide him over to the guard position. You're going to have Kelce returning at center. That's only going to help a guy like Jalen Hurts, who's going to get his major money at some point over this summer. I know free agency is starting right now. I know that there's a lot of contracts that are going to happen. Jalen Hurts is not going to be happening this week. That's going to happen later on, but it's certainly going to help Jalen Hurts to have his all-world center there in Jason Kelce for 2023.
No doubt about it. And look, I'll say this. He didn't need to come back to make a case for being a first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion. He's one of the best centers to ever have played the game, a 5-time first-team All-Pro and almost annual Pro Bowl caliber player. So Jason Kelce coming back, it's huge, I think, really for Jalen Hurts more than anyone else, obviously, to solidify the offensive line in front of them. They lose Isaac Suamalo, but as you talked about, they've prepared for that. So Jurgens can slide over and play that guard position. On defense, they lose a lot of players, in particular in their secondary. So the Eagles have a ton of work to do, but as long as you continue to have growth out of Jalen Hurts in that offense with that firepower they've got, Howie Roseman continues to build this roster both through free agency and the draft, they'll be just fine. And the last thing I'll say too is think about the upheaval they've had on their staff. They lose Shane Steichen to the Colts now as their head coach. Their offense coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, leaves for the Arizona Cardinals head coaching job as their defensive coordinator. It's been a lot of turnover. There's been a lot of change. If you can provide as much stability as possible, especially for a young quarterback who's going to get paid, going to get that second deal, but still continuing to improve as a player, that to me is the biggest key in all of this, and Jason Kelce coming back for another season. So big win for Hurts, big win for the Eagles too, and then trying to get back to a Super Bowl and win one.
NFL analyst Brady Quinn, lead insider Jonathan Jones joining us here to discuss the opening of the legal tampering window in the NFL and some of the major stories. They'll be discussing this subject and who could be on the move on the Pick Six podcast. The latest episode, a breakdown of the Bears trade with Carolina for the #1 overall pick. Ryan Wilson and Rick Spielman doing double podcast duty. You can download and follow the Pick Six podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.